Macca's Guides.
Hey everyone, Macca here playing Split Fiction, and in today's video I'll show you how to get the 100% completion in this game by showing you all of the missable achievements and trophies, the locations of the 12 side stories, as well as the 6 benches. Special thanks to the EA GameChangers program for providing me with a game code. In the top left corner you can see what chapter and subchapter we're in, so chapter 2, Play Me Techno, and the first thing you can grab is the first side story, which is Legend of the Sandfish. This one is shown to you during a cutscene and very hard to miss. Just make sure you actually play through it if you want the game to track that you beat it. As we continue playing through the Play Me Techno subchapter, the first player on the left will use some gravity walls to get across a gap. They can then use a bomb to launch back to player 2, which can open up a window in order to progress underneath a bridge. For the Are We Baddies achievement/trophy, have player 1 give player 2 a bomb, and then have player 2 destroy the bridge above their head in order to unlock this. Just a little bit later on, you'll end up joining back up after one of the players climbs a ladder. There'll be a door in front of you, and when you open that door, you should reveal the scene directly in front of you. Do not go through the tunnel on the left, which is how you make more story progress. Instead, take a peek to the right-hand side, and you may notice a familiar character. This is the elephant from It Takes Two. If you played that game, you kind of know what's going to happen, but you can use player 2 on the right hand side. They have like a kind of energy whiplash ability, and they can basically tear off one of the ears and one of the legs in order to unlock Rose's best friend. We then move on to the Streets of Neon subchapter, where we can find side story number 2, Farmlife, near the very beginning. Walk up the steps, and instead of progressing through the level by going left, hop over the fence, and you should notice the portal to the side story in front of you. Interact with it to start one of the more fun side stories in the game. We can actually grab 2 achievements or trophies, which are technically missable in side story number 2, but there is a very decent chapter select which allows you to mop up after completion if necessary. During the Farmlife side story, you'll end up going through this door. You'll notice this kind of huge strawberry in front of you up in the sky. And if you take the first player on the left and go towards the large hog, use the right trigger for the rainbow ability, and this will have a probably undesirable effect on the hog, but a desirable effect on your console of choice, which is unlocking an achievement or trophy. You'll then come through another door with both of your little piggies, and as you enter this one, you may notice some houses that you learned about as a child. I believe there's a brick house, a straw house, and probably another one. But if you go right up the middle, you'll notice that there's the brick house. The other 2 are actually broken down already. But if you go behind it and use the first player's ability to just smash your head into the target, you can knock it down to grab the Huffing and Puffin achievement/trophy. Near the very beginning of the subchapter called Big City Life, we can grab our first out of 6 benches, which is obviously a bit of a reference to Hazelight's first game, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. I believe the achievement is actually called Sisters, A Tale of Two Besties, and you're going to have to grab all 6 benches throughout the game. This is the first one you can get. Near the beginning of the subchapter, you will basically use your ability to get across this huge gap, landing on a balcony and discovering this very easy to find bench directly in front of you, but there are some very tricky ones coming up later. Remaining in Big City Life, you'll get to this rooftop where there's a lot of traffic that goes across this gap, and you'll need to use the porta potty to get across the gap. But instead, let's find side story number 3, Mountain Hike. Go inside of the porta potty with player 1 and have player 2 pick it up and actually toss it behind them instead of crossing the road. Here you can find your third side story, which is pretty much a direct reference to Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. So you'll have to have the ladder knocked down so that both players can get up here, and then interact with it to start it and complete it for it to complete. After you complete that side story, there's actually an achievement or trophy called Robot Revolution we can grab right after. We're going to actually do what we're supposed to do, which is get across the large gap using the porta potty. And once that happens, player 1 can help player 2 join them by interacting with this lever that basically shoots an orb across the gap that they can, slingshot across. And in front of you, you'll enter kind of like a hotel with some elevator banks in front of you, and we can grab Robot Revolution. To do this, you'll have to beat up the robot that is the attendant in the middle of the room. You'll notice that their face completely changes into like a digital picture, and once you stop, you'll get a little bit of an Easter egg, and that Easter egg will end up with an achievement or trophy. You then end up in the Gravity Bike subchapter, and you can grab the You Are Not a Robot achievement/trophy, which is probably one of the 3 hardest ones in the game. Player 2 has to complete a series of mini games on the phone, while player 1 rides around on the bike on the left. The motorcycle part is super easy, but the person on the right has about 1 minute to complete all of the CAPTCHA mini games, which includes selecting boxes, fire trucks, and giraffes. You then have to try to basically click all 3 of the check marks, but you're blocked by a phone call, so you have to decline the phone call, redo those 3 check boxes, go through the terms and conditions. You're then given a CAPTCHA, which is a 6-letter kind of 2-word byte, but the phone tries to autocorrect that, so you have to make sure that you do not let the phone autocorrect. If done perfectly, you will have about 20 seconds left over, but you're probably not going to get it on your first try, and you will have to restart the entire chapter to try again, unfortunately, as there is a checkpoint in the middle that kind of makes it impossible to finish. But once the bike on the left reaches the end to the cutscene, you'll get a little bit of a special ending if you were successful, allowing you to unlock this achievement or trophy. We move on to the beginning of Chapter 3. The subchapter is called the Underlands, and we can get a friendly push achievement/trophy when we reach this section. And what we need to do is use player 1 to sit on the bench as you enter to the right, and then use player 1 to transform into the large animal, swing on the fence to cause player 2 to fly, and this will get you your achievement or trophy. You'll then come to a section where you use your little swimming buddy as player 1 to navigate across some of these gaps that player 2 can't get across. You're supposed to naturally go to the left to continue the story, but instead you want to stop on this platform to the right. You should notice the pretty obvious kind of glowing side story, which means it's nearby. Here you'll be able to kind of cross the water, do a little bit of a wall run. This will take you to the side story called Train Heist. One of the next subchapters is called Walking Stick of Doom, and this contains side story number 5, the Gameshow. You'll come across a kind of drawbridge or a suspension bridge made of wood. Naturally, the game wants you to go to the right. This one's pretty obviously to the left. I believe your characters also engage in some dialogue to kind of let you know not to miss it. There's a little bit of platforming here and there to actually get to the side story, and there's a really tough achievement or trophy inside of the game show that I will show you as well. So either way, you want to come here, and we can come back for that achievement or trophy if we struggle, or try to get it through on your first time. But you definitely want access to it. Now, for the next 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to talk about the Cold Potato Achievement/Trophy, which is possible inside of side story number 5, Game Show. This is probably the hardest achievement or trophy in the game, and requires you and your co-op partner to play a flawless round of the Game Show, which is a 7-round series of mini games where you toss a bomb back and forth that works like a hot potato. That bomb is on a timer, so neither player can hold it for too long, and you'll have to basically complete 7 little mini games by tossing the bomb back and forth during the first phase, which is a little bit of a tutorial. The second level is obviously also quite easy and just requires you to toss the bomb back and forth a couple of times and deliver it to an area at the end. These mini games do get a little bit harder and harder. For the third mini game, you'll want to both time your jumps on these push plates in order to throw the bomb above the glass. This can be a little bit tricky, as you also need to make forward progress or else you'll run out of time. And then at the end, you also want to deliver that bomb. You need both characters to interact with the receptacle at the end for the bomb to be delivered. The next minigame introduces some new obstacles, which are these kind of time-based fire tiles. And you're going to work with your co-op partner to toss the bomb back and forth between each other, making sure to also time these kind of fire obstacles with your tosses so that one of you isn't standing in the fire as it goes off and kills you. So basically, you can't drop the bomb at all. You can't be in possession of the bomb when you go through an obstacle that would hurt your character, and you have to deliver the bomb basically flawlessly. It is possible for the character that doesn't have the bomb to die and then respawn at the beginning, and in certain instances, it is possible to toss that bomb all the way back to the person at the start. For the next minigame, you want to run diagonally away from each other, as the robot in the middle tends to go towards the person with the bomb, and just running diagonally allows you to create space and more time between you, and you just want to get to the very end to deliver it into the receptacle. Last but not least is probably the hardest one. They've been getting a little bit harder and harder as we've gone through them. This one involves a lot of tossing back and forth. I'd recommend tossing the bomb back and forth on every single obstacle. I believe the fuse or the timer on the bomb is also getting shorter and shorter from minigame to minigame. So you do really want to take your time and just pause at every interval, and you want to make sure you're hitting obstacles at the same time. It's very easy to get out of sync, and once you're out of sync, it can be very hard to deliver the bomb to each other. So you can see we're going obstacle by obstacle, tossing the bomb back and forth, making sure each co-op partner is ready to receive, and you are catching it, deliver to the final receptacle, and there you go for that round, but there is one more round to go. The final phase of the minigame is the hardest one, and there is this weird kind of flash obstacle, which is a little difficult. You do not want to double jump into it. Double jumping takes longer, which, creates a smaller window of opportunity for you. Toss the bomb back and forth between obstacles to make sure both of you end up on top of the robot at the end at the same time, as both of you need to deliver and interact with it in order to unlock it. Do all of them in one go perfectly to unlock the Cold Potato Achievement / Trophy. In one of the next sub-chapters of Chapter 3, Halls of Ice, at the very beginning, we can grab the 1 bird, 3 stones Achievement / Trophy. Run up the stairs directly in front of you from where you spawn, and the first player on the left can interact with these 3 snowballs by the snowman. And as you're doing this, a lovely mama bird will be flying across the sky to give food to her beloved newborns. Unfortunately, your snowball goes a little AWOL, and that does not end in a happy story. Just a little bit later on in the Halls of Ice chapter, we can open up the castle door. We'll need to use some teamwork for that, as you do for most of the things in this game. As you enter the castle, look to your left-hand side, and this is an optional area you won't really go to, but there is a bench here. This will be our second out of 6 benches, and we'll need both characters to interact with it to sit down, to get it kind of trigger a cutscene, and once you do that, you can then cancel out and move on. A little bit later on, we'll find side story number 6, The Collapsing Star, which I actually did enjoy. This one is impeccably hard to miss, so hopefully you don't need the guide. But if you're coming up the kind of side of the castle, you'll pull yourself through this window, and instead of going to the castle door on the left, it will be very obviously directly in front of you, so interact with it before you move on. We then switch to chapter number 4, and one of the first sub-chapters is called Toxic Tumblers. You'll come to these very aptly named toxic tumblers to get across the bottom sludge area. And this one's very obvious. Instead of going left to continue with the game, there should be some somewhat obvious side story areas in front of you. So just run across the gap to trigger it. This one is for a side story called Kites. Unfortunately, one of my lesser favorite ones. One of the next sub-chapters is called Test Chamber, and you can find side story number 8, Moon Market. This is a good one because it has some achievements or trophies located inside of the side story. But as you're working your way through, instead of going to the right using this kind of revolving platform that is kind of like a star shape, you actually want to go forward, use your guns to open up some of these doors in front of you. You can basically like double jump now and get in, and there will be a couple of pedestals you can ride. You have to time your way up a little bit in order to get to the top. And at the top, you can find side story number 8, the Moon Market. But as I mentioned, inside of the Moon Market, there are 2 achievements and trophies, so we're going to grab those as well. There's a little bit of a journey to get into the side story, but it's pretty simple once you're on the right track. So inside of the Moon Market side story, you'll open up the first cat gate. The pink, blue, and green cat will run away. That's kind of those are the 3 main goals of the side story. But let's start off by going with player 1 to the left, and you'll notice that there is a wand shop. We're going to grab that wand. I think there's some Harry Potter inspiration potentially in this side story, and we're going to take this wand over to the other player. Use the wand on the player and keep transforming them until they transform into a chair. I didn't actually test if it's random or not, but once they're a chair, just sit on them, and that will be Chair the Load achievement / trophy. Additionally here, though, you can cancel out of the chair, and on the right side from where we entered, player 2 can mix these potions and create basically recipes based on the recipe board on the right-hand side. And what we need to do for the Potion Chef achievement / trophy is create all of the recipes. There's only 6 of them, so that's not too many. And you actually have to drink all 6 of the potions. They'll transform you into like kind of random things, and you just want to cancel out of them and create the next potion and make all 6 of them. You can actually have the players collaborate here and make it faster by mixing the potions together. But what we did was we made sure that the same person drank all of the potions just to be safe. We then move on to the Run and Gun subchapter in Chapter 4, and we can grab the Cake is Not a Lie achievement / trophy. If you are a God gamer, you know kind of what's coming up. You'll take out a turret, and just after that turret, there will be some portals. There's your clue if you didn't know. And you'll go through the portals, and as you're going through the portals, there is a secret area you can find that is actually very well hidden, so it's pretty surprising to find it. But at the end of these portal areas, you actually want to jump off the wall and jump back and find the secret room above yourself. Once you get here, you can find the Cake is Not a Lie with an infinite portal right next to it. In the Soaring Desperados subchapter, we can find one of the easiest side stories to find in the game, which is the Notebook. You'll come and find these kind of pipes you'll navigate using your jetpack. There will be these kind of spiral chainsaw things that come down the pipes. You're going to have to kind of double jump and jetpack over. You're supposed to go to the right-hand side to continue the game, but pretty much anyone can notice that to the left, you can find a side story, and once you interact with it, this will start side story number 9 called Notebook. I don't think I was a very big fan of this one personally. A little later on in Soaring Desperados, you'll complete a series of puzzles, and at the end of those puzzles, you actually drop off your jetpacks, and that completes the jetpack section and opens the doors directly in front of you. Go through those doors in front of you and look to the left. You'll notice a large window. In front of those windows, you can find bench number 3 out of 6 for our purposes, and you'll want to sit on the bench and make sure you get it before you move on. Next up, we're at the Water Temple subchapter in Chapter 5. You'll climb up a bit of an ivy wall, and here you will have to split up. Character 1 will go to the left, and Character 2 will go to the right. This is pretty much mandatory, as your abilities don't allow you to take a different section. As you're going through this section, both of you will notice that there is an edible fruit, and once one of you or both of you eats one, the achievement or trophy should unlock. This one's called Feed Me. I believe it unlocks if either of the characters do it, but we just, to be safe, both of us did it. A little later on, you'll join up and take this elevator up, noticing 2 large golden balls directly in front of you. That is the main story path, so we're going to skip that as we're looking for side story number 10, Slopes of War, which I'll give a little hint is kind of like SSX Tricky, which is very cool. Now, in order to do this, there's a little bit of a puzzle. One of the characters has to go across the gap using the lever, and then they'll get off of that platform, and the other player will bring the platform back with the lever that stays at the first area. Once that happens, you can actually have player 2 also switch to the higher platform, and then player 1, on my instance, the left character, can kind of get those platforms to switch again, bringing themselves over across the gap, but also bringing the other player across the other gap. After you do that, what you want to do is you actually want to interact with the platform and then very quickly leave it so that you can stay on the island out in the distance. This also brings back your other characters so you can both meet each other on this platform. and then you can interact with both levers at the same time. This is the only way to move this platform with the levers. This brings you to the pretty obvious side story directly in front of you at the end of this not very obvious puzzle. And then a little bit later on during Water Temple, you will guide each other through this section using the little water wheels. And then the left player can basically hang on this hook. The right player can jump onto some ivy to pull that hook up. And the characters will be able to rejoin. As they rejoin, similarly to the last time we rejoined, there is a bench nearby. Jump up the ledge and find a stone bench to the left, interacting with it to trigger it. We're then at the very beginning of the Craft Temple side chapter in Chapter 5, and we can find side story 11 out of 12, which means we're coming up to the end of them. But if you exit the cave where you start the mission and look to the right instead of the left, you'll notice a small optional side section where you can get yourself access to the side story. You'll have to use a little bit of teamwork by having the person on the right interact with the jet to help the person gliding get across. You can then use your toxic breath to knock over an item to allow the other person to join you. And once you're joined up, you can interact with the side story area to get Space Escape. Make sure you complete this one to get the credit. For the final side story, which is side story number 12, Birthday Cake, we are on the Treasure Temple subchapter. This is right near the beginning. You'll exit and notice these crystals in front of you. The rolling dragon can actually break through them, which is kind of cool. And the natural path to complete the main story would take you to the right underneath these kind of arch gates. So instead, we're going to go to the left where there is a little bit of a side path. There is a gummy bear in the middle there you'll need to use to kind of bounce your way across. But once you get across, you can start the Birthday Cake side story, which I think is one of the better ones. With this being the last side story, you should unlock the Bookworms achievement/trophy upon completion, but you can use Chapter Select to see if you skipped one. Just a couple of missable achievements and trophies and benches left. We're in Chapter 6, Hydration Facility, and we're going to be using the boat to get the marble across some of these obstacles as we work our way around this kind of central area. And before we exit, you'll find a couple of bubbles kind of at a dead end, not far from the exit. As you approach those bubbles, a little bit of a surprise for you. Steven Spielberg is waiting with Jaws, and you'll get an achievement or trophy. We can then grab the Snake achievement/trophy. I'm sure the pro gamers watching this video will know the reference. You'll be using the marble to guide yourself across this large gap and a turret to shoot enemies that can basically distract you. As you get across this big gap, the marble character should notice a box. They can go into that box to do their best impression of Solid Snake and then have the turret shoot the box off to get the achievement or trophy. In the Waste Depot subchapter, we can grab our 5th bench. The character on the left will be navigating using a platform. The character on the right will use their magnetism to jump over an obstacle, and you'll both meet up together coming up this ramp. There's a container in front of you as you get to the top of the hill. Let's ignore that container for a bit, even though I accidentally don't. There's a bench right next to that container you'll want to grab before you move on. In the chapter named Cell Blocks, we can grab the Tazed and Confused achievement/trophy. You'll come across this narrow gap, and you'll have to use the magnetism ability to protect yourself from getting slammed. The hack character can hack the robot across the gap, extend the pole to allow the other character to join you on this platform. And then I thought you had to poke the character with the pole. That is not correct. You want to extend the pole and then sweep across to knock them down. That'll get you the Tazed and Confused achievement or trophy. Chapter 6, Maximum Security. You'll come to a section where there is a left or right way to get to the next part of the level. We found the right option to be significantly easier personally. But once you get to the end, or one of you get to the end and allow the other person to catch up, you'll find before you move on, there is this kind of like jail cell. And one of the characters, it doesn't matter who, has to interact with the little control panel to open up the jail cell. The other character has to go inside and then just lock them up in the jail cell to get the locked up achievement/trophy, which I believe is a reference to A Way Out, one of the previous games the studio has made. We're rounding off the video here. If you have found it helpful and you think I've earned it, I would appreciate a like on the video. Those who want to go above and beyond can also engage with super thanks in the YouTube comments. But during Chapter 7, Mosaic of Memories, we can find our final bench. You'll come up a chain through a hallway, and then you'll be able to ignite the lights coming through the windows using both of the characters. You'll have to navigate across these light shards in order to find a somewhat obvious final bench sitting directly in front of you. And once you interact with this bench and start the little cutscene, the timing is pretty tight, by the way, to get through there. You will unlock bench 6 out of 6 and grab the Sisters, A Tale of Two Besties achievement/trophy. Last but not least, you guys become BFFs by rolling the final credits, unlocking your final achievement/trophy, and earning that platinum if you're playing on PlayStation. Thanks for watching. Drop a like on the video. Special thanks to everyone on Patreon for supporting the show, and hopefully I see you soon. Peace.